Welcome to the Healing Cocoon. I'm Jacobie Gray, soul alignment and success coach and energy healer, which means I can intuit the subtle layers of your energy field to promote ultimate health and well-being. My goal for this podcast is to shed light on the healing journey itself and help you feel more supported as you embark on the process of unpacking your past to consciously create your present and start living the life of your dreams. Through the study of coaching, kinesiology, holographic kinetics, meditation, reiki, the chakra system, and many other modalities, I've learned how to release the blocks that were holding me back. Now I'd love to help you do the same. By embarking on your own self-healing process, you'll see the world transforming around you in ways you never thought possible. You'll begin to experience more connection, clarity, love, fulfillment, synchronicity, and success than you've ever had before. So welcome to the Ascension. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back to the Healing Cocoon podcast. It's another Metamorphosis chat this week, number 2 to be exact. And this was meant to be a 2-part series. The first part being the initial exploration of how I became an energy healer and the defining moments that sent me on my path to study energy healing. And I think I left off last week with saying part 2 would explore my divorce, which activated me into the second part of my healing journey and becoming an energy healer. But as I sat down to write some notes, I realized there's a whole chunk in there that was actually activated the first time that I came to America. People will sometimes speak about, I know in one of our previous episodes, I interviewed my friend Chelsea J. Bear, and she talked about how when she landed down in Australia, she's American, she moved there to be with her boyfriend, she was suddenly activated by the energies there, the dreamtime energies, the very spiritual nature of Australia. And I had a similar experience the first time I came to America. So in 2009, I won the green card lottery, which was a dream come true for me because I was able to pursue my entertainment career in Hollywood, which is something I had wanted to do for as long as I can remember. And my ex-husband, although we weren't married at the time, but we were living together in Sydney, where I was working as a talent agent, managing actors, and he was building his business. And we were both moving through the green card lottery selection process together. But there's several stages to that process. And I actually ended up winning the lottery and he didn't. And it's actually, just as a little sidestep, it's a cute story. If you believe in manifestation, which of course I do, but I'd met this Australian actress. She was a young actress and she was about to fly off to New York, and I met her out at a bar in Sydney one night, and she said she'd won the lottery because she'd met another actor who had also won the lottery, and he told her that when he found out that he was selected initially for the process, he looked in the mirror every single day and he said, I have won the green card lottery. And so she decided to do the same thing and she won it as well. So me taking this to the next step, I bought pieces of cardboard and I drew diagrams, I cut out images, I wrote, I have won the green card lottery, and my side of the bedroom, my bedroom wall was covered in Hollywood, green card, paraphernalia, affirmations, all of the things. And I would look at it and I would cast my mind into it and I would dream about it and I would create it, and I won it. Which then posed the problem of me needing to activate the visa, which meant I needed to move there and live there for at least 5 months, I think it was. So then I had to go to America, and I left my ex at home where he continued to build his business. And off I went to LA for 6 months, it was initially, and I worked in various industry jobs, including working for the people who cast CSI Miami and for a couple of other companies. And I was interning, I was kind of working myself into the ground. But I had this experience, and I'm pretty sure now, looking back, what happened is that I touched down in America, and this is the land of the free, as they like to say, but also there is a very wild and big energy in this country. And I think that something within me was activated the second I landed here. But it manifested when I took myself off to a gym in Hollywood, and I was like, I'm going to be an actor in this gym in Hollywood where all these other actors go, and I'm just going to be living the Hollywood life. And I signed up for a training session, a free training session. And this trainer, he absolutely whipped my ass, but I wasn't unfit, so it was fine. Except at the end of it, I almost blacked out. And I sat down and I had my head between my knees. And this had never happened to me. I'd been a dancer my whole life. I'd always been really fit. I'd been training. I'd been doing all kinds of things. This was really unusual. And the trainer was saying to me, you're not eating enough protein. You need more protein. And he went and got me a protein shake. And I was like, okay, maybe I need more protein. And it could potentially be my iron levels. I've since found out that my body doesn't store iron, and I've got that double defect MTHFR gene, so that means I also don't methylate. So it could have been a combination of things, the stress of moving to a new country on my own. But actually, I think what it was is that my energy got activated. I did this very physical, hardcore workout, and it kind of sent me out of my body. And I had an out-of-body experience. And from that moment on, for the rest of my time in that initial 6 months in America, I could not ground myself to save my life. Admittedly, I was having a lot of fun and I was partying with my roommate at the time, but it was nothing too wild and crazy. Like, I wasn't going on benders for days and days and days. We were just going out to a pub on a Friday or a Saturday night and getting drunk and coming home. It wasn't crazy. But I was just so out of my body, and I started to have these moments of wondering, wait, if my mind is controlling my body, who's controlling my mind? Do I have control over the thing that's controlling my mind? And what if there's a breakdown between my mind and my body, and my mind goes haywire and sends out these signals to my body to go and walk in front of a car or jump off a building or do all these crazy things? And I want to preface this, I was not in any way suicidal. I had no desire to end my life. I was simply so far outside of my own body that I started to, I guess, experience a sense of otherness or something more than me. And I was no longer just inside my little human brain. And that ended up, like, if you've been on the freeways over in LA, they're like 6 lanes wide. I think in Australia, maybe it's 3 max. Like, it was crazy. I was having anxiety attacks on the freeway because I was like, well, I can't feel my hands on the steering wheel. Like, anyway, all in all, this experience led me to completely exhaust myself. And at the end of 6 months, I went home to my ex, and he proposed. And within 5 months, we were married, and I had convinced him to buy a house on the ground, a 1-story house that was on the ground, not the ninth floor apartment building that we'd lived in previously. I was like, I need to get on the ground because I am losing my mind. And I never told anybody what I was going through. I think on some level, I knew that it would be perceived as crazy. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I was having some kind of experience that it was happening simultaneous to my human life on the ground. It just took me a while to integrate that. So America initially, I think, activated me into my greater awareness of my own energy field. That was pretty big. And of course, I think I told you previously that I was seeing a kinesiologist. So the second I got home, I was back doing that. And at some point, I ended up studying transformational kinesiology. And through that process, I started to be able to do muscle testing on myself. I was able to develop enough of a relationship with my higher self. Actually, now that I'm saying this, probably because I was now opened up to my higher self, I started being able to muscle test on myself and therefore do little kinesiology balances on myself. So I remember I would say to my husband, I'm not feeling great. I'm going to go and do a little balance. And I would go and lock myself in our bedroom and I'd, do a little kinesiology balance, and I would test all my meridians and I would clear anything that wasn't clear, and I would bring myself back into balance, and then back out I would come into our life again. And he'd be like, "Oh, are you all clear?" And I'd be like, "I'm all clear." But of course, as I experienced this journey of stepping deeper into my own relationship with myself and my spirit, I started, I suppose, feeling a bit disconnected from my husband. And this was happening over a process of years. I'm just truncating it for this story. The other thing that was happening while this journey was kind of tumbling along at a slow pace, I would say, is that I was very much, when I got back from America, I dived into theatre directing, and I assistant directed plays in Newcastle and Sydney, and then I started directing, and then I was writing short films, and I wrote 3 short films and directed them, which ended up doing very well in the Australian scene. And then my second film premiered at Palm Springs International Short Film Festival, and then my third film premiered at Tribeca. And so I was very much still focused on my entertainment background, but just dabbling and keeping myself balanced and grounded in the energy things through this transformational kinesiology journey that I was now on. But since I was able to balance myself now, I felt like that 8-year journey of seeing the 3 practitioners I mentioned in the last episode had kind of wrapped up. And I was ready for a new teacher. And so what's that saying? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And my ex and I were actually in Spain for his best friend's wedding. And I was talking to the groom's sister. And somehow, I think I must have asked her, what does she do? And she was like, "Oh, I'm a masseuse and an energy healer, and I do a technique called the horseman technique," which I believe she's one of the few remaining people or practitioners in this technique in Australia, because I think that the person who originally channeled it, she's based somewhere around the bottom of Australia, maybe South Australia or even Tasmania. She no longer teaches it, and I'm not sure anyone's taken over the mantle of continuing on this lineage. But she was telling me about it, and she was explaining how trauma is stored in our hips, and it kind of gets frozen there. And that was a concept I'd heard before, and so it made sense to me. And she said that this particular technique works on releasing that. And I was like, oh my gosh, when we get back to Sydney, I absolutely want to have a session with you. And I would say that she was the first energy healer that I ever went and had a session with. And that was a game changer for me. She was connected to the other side, receiving messages, and she was working on me physically and releasing things. And the cool thing about this technique is there were 3 modes that you could work in. And I really wish I could remember the first one, but she used to test to figure out what we wanted to work on in that session. And the first one, I can't remember it, but the second one was self-sabotage. And the third one was past life. And so, of course, self-sabotage came up for me over and over and over, because there were many ways that I would self-sabotage myself in terms of relating, my personal relationships, in terms of my career, in my belief in myself, my self-worth. I mean, I feel like potentially my life has been one big journey of self-sabotage in many ways. Thankfully, it's not anymore, but it was a big life lesson for me. A big lesson that my soul came here to learn was to find its worth and stand in its worth and ask for what I am worth. So the past life aspect of the horseman technique, generally you move on to once you've cleared enough of the lifetime that you've accumulated in this, enough of the life and trauma you've accumulated in this lifetime before you move on to other lifetimes. And I've found that predominantly that's the way most healing modalities work. You will work through this lifetime. I know when I'm working on clients, and for example, when I'm doing my blend package, which is 6 sessions of coaching mixed with energy healing. And initially, it's generally like bringing the person just into balance and into their energy, place of homeostasis. And then we start clearing. And then by the end of the 6 sessions, I'm starting to experience past life stuff within the sessions that's coming up. And we're clearing things from a past life, or we're bringing through things from a past life and attributes that their soul believes and knows will support them in this lifetime. So that's generally the process of healing as a spiritual being works. You start clearing the trauma in this lifetime, and then you move on to past lifetimes.
I'm jumping in here because I want to ask you a question. Have you ever considered coaching and energy clearing as an option to support your personal healing journey? We often turn to therapy for unpacking the past, but what about what you want to create for your future? Coaching is a great tool for defining the action steps that will move you forward, and energy clearing removes the resistance to those action steps. So my unique offering called The Blend, which is a combination of the two, can be complementary to your deep dive into past traumas with your therapist, or used as a tool on its own to radically strip away the energetics that no longer serve you, so you can consciously define the parameters of your life. Because most people's lives are defined by the parameters of their mind, not the other way around. Coaching and energy clearing makes conscious what is unconscious, so that you're no longer a servant to your outdated protective programming, noisy thought patterns, and family energetics. So if you'd like to learn more about the blend and how it could support you transitioning into a more fulfilled version of yourself and your life, go to our website, which is also listed in the show notes of this episode at www.urbanascension.co, that's co, not .com, and schedule a free half-hour discovery call with me. I'd love to chat about what's holding you back and how I can help you move forward.
So at this stage, I guess I'm experiencing this expansion and starting to feel like I'm drifting from my husband. Although he was very supportive of me and my journey, I was expanding spiritually, but still had a lot of trauma that from my childhood, which meant I still wasn't able to speak up for and what I wanted and needed and ask for that. And he wasn't a naturally intuitive person or empathetic person, and so he wouldn't just sense what I needed and give it to me. And so we were kind of at odds in those two places. I wasn't felt like I was being emotionally tended to, and also spiritually I felt like there was no real connection there, which naturally started to create a rift between us. And so in a valiant effort to save our marriage, my ex decided that he would start the US branch of his company, and he would move over there with me, which up to this point he'd been adamant was not a possibility. So that was also another bone of contention between us. I so desperately wanted to just be in America. Even though I'd had this crazy wild experience, I still felt that my time here was not complete, and it's still not complete. I'm very much meant to be here right now. But back then I just knew my soul was, it was like a heat-seeking missile to get me back to America. And my ex-husband had, and fair enough, had a very successful business, and it was an Australian-based business. So we couldn't find a way to make those two desires and life paths merge until I was in a position where I was going to lose my green card. It was about to expire, so I needed to use it or lose it. And so I said to him, I think I'm going to go. I'm going to go. And that shook him up. And within a few months, he'd found a way to his credit, move himself over to the US. And so in 2015, we moved to Santa Monica and in Los Angeles and began our life there. And at this point, I knew I needed a new person, because moving away from Sydney meant I was moving away from my energy healer there. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was still very much of the mindset that I needed regular support and assistance. And absolutely, I did. I think that's part of the reason, considering all the trauma I've been through. I think that I didn't turn to other numbing devices, drugs, alcohol, partying, or anything, any of the ways people numb themselves. I actually was just seeking consistent support. But what I didn't realize is these people were actually my teachers. So I was seeking a new teacher who I believed was just going to be a new support system for me. And I was walking down Main Street in Santa Monica not long after we arrived. And I saw the Aura shop, which is a big crystal shop. And I walked in, immediately drawn to that. And I saw that they had 4 different energy healers available to have sessions with. And I asked at the desk and I said, I'd like an energy session. Who do you think would be best for me? And the lady was like, she looked at me and she said, I think you would work best with Antea. And I said, great, sign me up. And so began my beautiful journey with my soul sister, Antea, who I will be interviewing on the podcast in sometime this year. The episode will come up. I'm batching episodes at the moment. But Antea was such a profound person in my life in terms of helping me step into my gifts as a healer. And she's also now married to my ex-husband. So mic drop, there is lots of exciting things to talk about there. But back at this point in my journey in 2015, I was still married to my ex-husband. And I had my first session with Antea. And she's this gorgeous, just light worker. She absolutely glows. You have no idea how old she is. She's completely ageless. She's a very divine human being. And I was immediately attracted to her energy, her Pleiadian, beautiful Pleiadian energy. Not that I even knew what that was at that stage. But at the end of my first session with her, she said, you know, you're not really human, right? And I looked at her and I said, oh yeah, I know, we're all souls having a human experience. And she said, yeah, but actually some people are more human than others. You have otherworldly gifts. And she said, you're like me. And I kind of looked at her and I couldn't see it. But something that I hadn't touched on is that I had started seeing psychics. I think once I got home from the US that first time after, P.S. I was 29 going through my Saturn's return at that stage when I was in America, having that huge energetic awakening and personal meltdown. So when I got home, I started seeing psychics as well, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And I'd had one particular psychic say to me that she's like, oh, you have all the same gifts that I have. And I was like, I'm not really sure I do. And I always find this so interesting because some people are kind of born just awake to their gifts. And other people have to go through a process of waking up to their gifts. And I would say I've gone through a very slow and long, drawn-out process of waking up to my gifts, which I guess it feels like it kind of was much faster once I went to America in 2009, but there were still many, many years between that process, and then 2015, finally sitting down with Antea, and she's like, you're not really human, right? And so I started having sessions with her on a monthly basis, and there was all kinds of cool stuff. Like, I don't know, there was these like, I don't even know what to call them, but machines that I would sit in and have energy experience. And I don't know, there was sound bowls, there was all kinds of things. She was into everything. And in that back room of the shop there, which no longer exists in the state that it was then, there was just all kinds of like wild, fun things to like tap into your energy and do different things. So my sessions with her were always exciting and always very different, and always, very enlightening. And I was very much feeling like I was a co-creator in those sessions. I would absolutely go in with my list of things that I wanted to work on every week or every month. And I would be like, okay, so last month this and this and this happened, and I really want to change that. And I think it's related to this. And so my life has always been like under construction, shall we say. But I was very actively trying to build the house that I wanted to live in, as opposed to the house that I was born into. So during this process, I'm still very much pursuing on a daily basis, my career as a filmmaker, going to film festivals all over the US, and very much enjoying that part of my life. Still feeling like my husband and I were probably on different tracks, seeing these energy healers, seeing Antea once a month. But I also decided to go back and study Reiki. So I'd done Reiki 1 earlier when I was 26, but I decided to go back, do Reiki 1 again. This time I also studied Reiki 2 and Reiki 3. And what I loved about my beautiful Reiki, actually I should get her on the podcast, my beautiful Reiki initiator or master, she's absolutely a master, she separated the symbols that you usually get in Reiki Master. So generally you'll study Reiki as Reiki 1, and then they'll put Reiki 2 and Master kind of clumped together. But that process, my teacher believes that you should do Reiki 1 and have at least 6 months to integrate before you do Reiki 2, and have at least 6 months to integrate before you would do Reiki Master. However, some people don't want to become a master. You become a master to be able to teach other people and initiate them into the practice of Reiki, which I did not. I had no desire to become a master and initiate other people into Reiki. I wanted these skill sets for myself at that stage. So the fact that she offered a Reiki 3, which gave you the symbol that you would normally get in Reiki Master, so that you could practice Reiki fully, but without sort of stepping into the role of teacher, I did that. But what I didn't realize is that when you do Reiki 2, which you get, one of the symbols you get is Sei Hei Ki, which is the symbol of emotional and mental healing. And so I did Reiki 2 and got catapulted into my trauma. Again, it seems to happen many times through my life, but it was another layer of healing that needed to happen. But it also coincided with one of my best friends passing away from ovarian cancer in 2016. And so at that point, when I was saying goodbye to one of my best friends, and it was her anniversary recently of her death, at the same time, I was going through this huge healing experience of past trauma. I, at that point, realized I had to be courageous and make the leap to, I guess, move on from the marriage, which I knew at this point wasn't serving either of us. And at this stage, I know that my ex felt that he'd also given as much as he could to the relationship at that stage, and he was, ready to explore a split as well. So it was an amicable split by that point. And so off I went in eat, pray, love fashion to Bali. And I think then part 3 will be the final wrapping up of this journey. I just realized, that there was a whole chunk that was missing, which I've just spoken about right now, which was me stepping into my healing path. So next week, I promise I will wrap this story up. Thank you for having patience and listening to this wild, crazy story. I know that there are energy healers out there that this has been a lot easier for, and I really wish I was you. But in my case, it's just been this wild, crazy ride. I think, as I said at the beginning of part 1, I think I'm having all of these experiences. Well, not I think, I know. I've had to go through all of these experiences, like thinking I was kind of losing my mind when I was leaving my body, and privately battling with that for many years. When I know that I wasn't crazy and I wasn't losing my mind, but still internally I was going through some kind of wild thing that I was trying to integrate, some kind of awakening. But there are people out there who are having those experiences, and now I can work with them and relate to them, as well as people who are leaving their marriages, or people who have had trauma, childhood trauma, or all these experiences. And there's still more to come in the next Metamorphosis chat, I believe have made me the person that I am today and give me the ability to pretty much hold space for anybody. Which is the gift in itself. It was just pretty wild ride to get to this point. So I'll leave you there, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.
I hope this episode has inspired you to keep going on what can sometimes be a tough road to inner peace and true happiness. If you want to dive deeper into what we talked about today, go to thehealingcocoon.co for show notes and all things personal growth. And don't forget, if you're loving The Healing Cocoon, then put that love into action and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. And until next time, my friends, let's rise and shine together.